"That watch belonged to my father," a woman screamed. Then the mob boss revealed. Let me know what you thought of this story by giving it a rating from 0 to 10 and comment what city you're watching me from. I really want to know if you liked my story and get to know you better. So subscribe to my channel to support my work. I'm counting on your help. Maya Smith never imagined that accepting a temporary gig as a waitress at a private dinner on the Upper East Side of Manhattan would completely change her life. At 26, she woke up every day at 5 in the morning, prepared coffee for her mother Celia, who was battling a stubborn cancer, and left to face a routine that would crush anyone with less determination. 3 different jobs alternated in her tight schedule. In the morning, a receptionist at a veterinary clinic in Astoria. In the afternoon, when she could fit it in, she attended her law classes at the City University, where she had secured a spot after 3 attempts at her college entrance exams. At night, a waitress at corporate events or private parties, whatever came up and paid well. The small apartment in the Bronx, inherited from her father, was maintained with sacrifice. Every paid bill represented extra hours. Every new medicine for her mother meant giving up something for herself. Maya had learned from a very young age that life gave no quarter to those born in the outer boroughs. But her father, Detective John Smith, always said that dignity had no price and that she should keep her head held high no matter what happened. He died 5 years ago under circumstances that were never fully clarified. Officially a shootout during an operation. But Maya always felt there was something wrong with that story. Details that didn't add up, questions no one wanted to answer. It was with him in mind that Maya accepted the job that Thursday in November. The event company she sporadically worked for called, offering a generous flat fee to serve at an intimate dinner, only 15 guests, in a penthouse on the Upper East Side. The money would cover 2 of her mother's chemotherapy sessions. She didn't think twice. The penthouse was in one of the most luxurious buildings in the area, the kind of place where the doorman wears a suit and tie and looks you up and down before allowing you entry. Maya went up in the service elevator, already dressed in the discreet and elegant uniform the company provided, watching the numbers ascend to the 23rd floor. When the doors opened, she found herself in a private marble-lined foyer with a single massive carved wooden door in front of her. The chef in charge of the dinner received her with quick and precise instructions. It was a birthday celebration. The hostess, an elderly Italian lady, Mrs. Carmela, the mother of the penthouse owner. Traditional family, old money, everything had to go absolutely perfectly. Maya just nodded, accustomed to this type of event, where her presence was meant to be invisible, efficient, an elegant shadow that appeared to serve and disappeared without a trace. When she entered the main living area, the visual impact hit her like a punch to the gut. Calcutta marble floors, baccarat crystal chandeliers, floor-to-ceiling windows, revealing a panoramic view of New York City that seemed unreal in its beauty. The city stretching as far as the eye could see, a carpet of lights beginning to flicker on at twilight. The furniture was a collection of artworks, each object carefully chosen to compose an environment that breathed wealth without being ostentatious, an effortless elegance. The guests were already beginning to arrive, all impeccably dressed, conversing in low, sophisticated tones. Maya circulated among them with a tray of sparkling wine, receiving polite and indifferent smiles, just another piece of the mobile decor that made the evening pleasant. She observed everything with that attentive gaze she had inherited from her father, noticing details, expressions, the subtle power dynamics that revealed themselves in gestures and glances. It was when Mrs. Carmela entered the room, a lady with perfectly coiffed white hair, a classic navy blue dress, and a pearl necklace, that the atmosphere changed. Everyone turned to greet her with genuine affection. She was clearly loved, the kind of matriarch who commands through respect, not fear. Her son appeared right behind her, and for a moment Maya felt the air leave her lungs. Ethan Sterling had that presence that makes people turn their heads without knowing exactly why. Tall, with broad shoulders under a custom-tailored charcoal grey suit, black hair slightly too long to be corporate, and dark eyes that seemed to carry silent storms. He smiled at his mother with authentic tenderness, kissed her forehead, and led her to the head of the table. But there was something in his movements that Maya recognized immediately. The tension of someone who is always alert, always calculating, always ready to react. She knew this body language. She'd seen it in veteran cops, in people who dealt with danger as part of their routine. The dinner unfolded over multiple elaborate courses, with lively conversations about politics, economics, international travel, subjects from a world Maya only knew from books and television. She served, cleared plates, replaced silverware, a choreographed dance she performed with mechanical perfection while her mind wandered, thinking about bills to pay, her mother's next appointment, the criminal law exam she had the following week. It was during dessert that Ethan stood to make a toast. All eyes turned to him as he held his wine glass, smiling at his mother with that mix of love and melancholy that only adult children can express. Maya approached discreetly to pour more wine for the nearby guests when he raised his right arm in a broad gesture, and it was in that moment, that fraction of a second that seems to stretch into an eternity, that her world both collapsed and was rebuilt. The gold Rolex Submariner on his wrist gleamed under the light of the chandeliers, but it wasn't the precious metal that captured her attention. It was the small crack on the crystal near the number 3, a mark so familiar she could recognize it anywhere, under any circumstances. Even if 1,000 years had passed, her father wore that watch every day, touched it unconsciously when he was thinking, checked the time with that quick flick of the wrist she used to imitate as a child. The crack happened during a violent raid. He came home with the crystal fractured, joking that the watch had saved his life by deflecting a shard of glass that could have hit his eye. Maya's hands trembled so violently that the glasses on her tray tinkled like alarm bells. Blood pounded in her ears, drowning out the surrounding sounds. 5 years of pent-up grief, 5 years of unanswered questions, 5 years of carefully controlled anger exploded all at once, breaking through every barrier she had built to keep functioning, to keep living. The tray crashed to the floor, crystal shattering into 1,000 pieces, red wine spreading across the light marble like blood. All eyes turned to her, shocked, confused, but Maya could only see the watch, could only feel the brutal injustice of seeing that sacred memory of her father on the wrist of a stranger, of a man who lived in a multi-million-dollar penthouse while she fought to survive. The scream that tore from her throat carried 5 years of compressed suffering. "That watch belongs to my father." The words echoed through the room, silencing all conversation, freezing all movement. She pointed at Ethan with a trembling finger, tears streaming down her face without her noticing or caring. That watch, that Rolex with the crack, it belonged to Detective John Smith, my father, who died 5 years ago and never came home. The silence that followed was so thick it felt solid. Maya saw the color drain from Ethan's face, saw his eyes widen with recognition, and something else, something that looked like terror and understanding all at once. He looked at the watch on his wrist, as if seeing it for the first time, then back at her, and in that split second when their eyes met, an electric current passed between them so intense that Maya felt it physically, like a shock that ran through her from head to toe. Mrs. Carmela rose in alarm. Other guests began to murmur. Someone said something about calling security, but Ethan raised a hand in a gesture that silenced everyone immediately. He didn't take his eyes off Maya, and she realized he was trembling too, that there was something in him beyond guilt or anger. There was recognition, as if he were seeing a ghost that had haunted him for years. "Everyone, please leave." Ethan's voice came out low but charged with an authority that brooked no argument. The party is over. I apologize, Mother, but I need to deal with this now. Mrs. Carmela tried to protest, confused and worried, but he kissed her forehead and asked her to trust him. Slowly, the guests began to rise, casting curious and concerned glances between Ethan and Maya, but they obeyed. The chef and the other event staff started to clear things, but Ethan dismissed them all with a wave of his hand and a thick envelope of cash he pulled from his pocket. Within 15 minutes, the penthouse was empty. With only Ethan and Maya remaining on opposite sides of the room, the silence between them heavy with a tension that made the air feel thick. John Smith. Ethan spoke the name like a prayer, like a curse, like a wound that had never closed. He took the watch off his wrist with slow, reverent movements, holding it in the palm of his hand, as if it were something both sacred and terrible. I knew this day would come. Of all the ways I imagined it, I never thought it would be like this. Maya was paralyzed, all her anger draining away to leave only a huge void, a desperate need to understand. How? How do you have this watch? What did you do to my father? Ethan closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, Maya saw something in them that completely disarmed her. A pain so deep and genuine, it was impossible to fake. I didn't do anything to your father. I tried to save him, and I failed. And I have lived with that every single day since. He moved to the bar, poured 2 generous measures of whiskey, and extended one to Maya. She accepted without thinking, her hands still shaking, and drank it all at once, feeling the liquid burn her throat and warm her stomach. Ethan did the same, then poured another for both of them. Sit down. He indicated the sofa. Please, this is going to be a long conversation, and you deserve the whole truth. All of it. Maya sat because her legs threatened to give out. Ethan settled into an armchair across from her, maintaining a respectful distance, the watch still in his hand, his fingers tracing the crack on the crystal with painful familiarity. My father, Robert Sterling, built an empire. Ethan began, his voice low and controlled, but Maya could feel the tension under every word. On the outside, he was a successful businessman, investments, import-export, impeccably legal front companies. Underneath, he ran one of the largest money laundering operations in the country, cleaning funds for cartels, corrupt politicians, unscrupulous businessmen. He died 3 years ago, a heart attack, and I inherited everything, the legitimate empire and the rotten one. Nausea rose in Maya's throat. You're a criminal. Yes. Ethan didn't try to deny or soften it. I am. But that wasn't what I wanted to be. I tried to get away. I went to study abroad, tried to build something of my own, away from the family. But when my father got sick, when it became clear he would die soon, I was summoned back. Not as a request, but as an order. There were powerful people involved, people who wouldn't accept seeing the empire crumble. I came back to try to clean it all up, to try to find a way out. And that's when I met your father. Ethan stood up, went to the window, and looked out at the city below. Maya could see his silhouette against the lights, his shoulders tense, his hands clenched. John Smith was unlike any cop I'd ever seen, incorruptible, stubborn, obsessed with the truth. He had been investigating our operation for years, getting closer every day. There were cops on my father's payroll who tried to divert him, bribe him, threaten him. Nothing worked. He kept digging, finding connections, building a case that could bring down not just my family, but half of New York's elite. Tears burned in Maya's eyes. He never gave up. Never. I know. Ethan turned to face her, and Maya saw tears in his eyes too. And that's why I did something stupid, desperate, and completely useless. I contacted him secretly. I offered him information, offered to help dismantle everything from the inside. I thought if we worked together, we could do it without bloodshed, without deaths, just by putting the right people in jail. Maya's heart raced. My father never mentioned it, because he was smart. He didn't trust me, and he was right not to. But he was also pragmatic. We started exchanging information carefully, always verifying everything. I would pass him documents, he would investigate. Slowly, very slowly, we were building something. But I underestimated how many insiders my father had within the police force. Someone found out. Someone realized John was dangerously close to documents I had access to, and they decided he had to die. Ethan returned to the armchair, sinking into it as if the weight of the memory was physical. I found out too late. A corrupt cop, Captain Fisher. You must remember him. He'd been in my family's pocket for years. He came to me, said there was an order to eliminate John Smith, that it would be disguised as a death in the line of duty. I tried to stop it, offered money, threatened to expose everything, but it was too late. The operation was already in motion. Maya felt as if she were being torn in half. You knew they were going to kill my father and you didn't warn him. I tried. Ethan's voice was choked with desperation. I called him, I sent messages, I tried to get to him in person, but he was on duty, in a field operation, out of contact. When I finally got through to him, it was too late. I heard the shots over the phone, I heard him fall, and I couldn't do anything. Absolutely nothing. The silence that followed was broken only by Maya's sobs, all the pain she had held in for 5 years, finally finding an outlet. Ethan stood, seemed to want to approach, but held himself back, respecting her space, her grief. The watch came to me days later through Fisher. He thought it would be some kind of trophy, proof that he'd handled the problem. When I saw it, when I realized whose it was, I threw up. Literally threw up. I kept it in a safe for months. I couldn't look at it, but I couldn't get rid of it either. It was the only tangible thing left of a good man who died because of me, because of my cowardice, my inability to protect him. Ethan held the watch out to Maya, his hands shaking. I started wearing it a year ago, as a penance, as a reminder to never forget the price of my weakness. Every time I look at it, I see your father's face. I hear his voice in that last phone call, asking for help that never came. Maya took the watch, felt its familiar weight, the texture of the metal, ran her fingers over the crack she knew so well. It was like having a piece of her father back, and at the same time, it was a wound being reopened, exposing everything she had tried to heal. "Why should I believe you?" she asked, her voice hoarse from crying. "Why should I believe anything you say?" Ethan sighed, went to a built-in cabinet in the wall, typed in a code, and the door opened to reveal a safe. He took out a thick folder, came back and handed it to Maya. "Here are the transcripts of every conversation I had with your father. Here are copies of the documents I passed to him. Here is the recording of our last phone call. Listen, read, check everything, and then decide if I'm lying or not." Maya opened the folder with trembling hands, saw her father's handwriting in notes on the margins of the documents, recognized his methodical work style. There were call transcripts, records of meetings, all dated and detailed, and there was an audio recording on a flash drive. She looked at Ethan, who nodded. He plugged the flash drive into a discreet sound system built into the wall. Her father's voice filled the room, the voice she hadn't heard in 5 years, speaking in a low, urgent tone. "Ethan, the documents you passed are gold. We have almost everything we need. A few more months and we can close the net. But I need you to be careful. If they find out you're cooperating, you're a dead man." Ethan's voice, younger, more anxious. "What about you? If they find out you're this close, you're a dead man too. Maybe we should speed this up, arrest who we can now." "No, there are people who are too big involved in this. If we act early, they'll slip away and we'll both end up in a ditch. We have to be patient." A pause. "You know I don't trust you completely, right? A criminal's son who decides to switch sides? It sounds too good to be true." "I know, and you're right not to trust me. But I have to do this. I have to clean up my family's name, or at least try. I don't want my future children to carry this burden. A low laugh from Maya's father. You're too idealistic for the world you were born into, kid. It's either going to get you killed or save you. I'm not sure which yet. The recording continued. More conversations, more planning, and then the final call. Maya heard Ethan's desperate voice, shouting warnings, heard gunshots in the background, the phone dropping, silence, and then Ethan's heavy breathing, sobbing, repeating apologies to no one. When the recording ended, Maya was in pieces. Everything she thought she knew, all her certainties, had been turned upside down. Ethan wasn't just some criminal wearing her father's watch by chance. He was someone who had tried to do the right thing, who had failed, and who carried that guilt like a cross. Fisher. Maya said the name like a curse. He passed away last year. Heart attack. I know. Ethan met her eyes. It wasn't a heart attack. A chill ran down Maya's spine. You killed him, not personally, but I gave the order, yes. He was a cancer. He kept killing good people, protecting rotten ones. I thought eliminating him would be some form of justice, but it wasn't. Your father was still dead. My hands were still dirty. Nothing changed. Maya got up, needing to move, to process it all. She walked to the window, looked at the city below, all those lights, all those lives happening simultaneously, oblivious to the drama unfolding in that penthouse. You said you inherited your father's empire. Are you still running the dirty business? Yes and no. Ethan approached, keeping a safe distance. There are businesses I managed to shut down, convert to legitimate activities. There are others that are too deeply rooted, involving people too powerful to just be switched off. I'm trying to dismantle it all from the inside, slowly, without creating a power vacuum that would be filled by someone worse. It's a slow, frustrating process, and one that could get me killed at any moment. Why not go to the police? Turn everything in at once? Ethan laughed humorlessly. Because half the police are on the payroll, because the tentacles of this operation reach so high that I wouldn't survive a week after opening my mouth. And because, selfishly, I don't want to see my mother find out that the husband she loved was a monster. She's innocent in all of this, genuinely believes we were just successful businessmen. Maya turned to face him, to really see him for the first time. Beneath the facade of the sophisticated businessman was an exhausted, haunted man, trapped in a cage from which he couldn't escape. And there was something else, something she had felt since the moment their eyes met, a connection that defied all logic. I should hate you, she said, her voice barely a whisper. I know, and you have every right to. I hate myself, but I can't. And that makes me even angrier. Ethan took a step forward, hesitant. Maya, I've spent the last 5 years trying to atone for a guilt that will never go away. When you walked in here today, when I saw who you were, I felt like the universe was either giving me a chance or punishing me for good, probably both. Maya felt her heart speed up as he moved closer. There was an intensity in his eyes that made her want to run and get closer at the same time. Everything about this was wrong. He represented everything she was supposed to despise, and yet the attraction she felt was undeniable, magnetic, frightening. I don't know what to do with all this, she admitted, silent tears running down her face. My father has been dead for 5 years, and I just found out he was working with the son of the man he wanted to arrest. That he was killed by people who were supposed to protect him, that you wore his watch as some kind of twisted penance. It's too much madness. Ethan raised his hand, hesitated, then gently wiped a tear from her cheek with his thumb. The touch was electric, and Maya saw in his eyes that he felt it too. Let me take you home. You've been through a lot today. Tomorrow, if you want, we can talk more. Or never again, if you prefer. It's your call. Maya knew she should refuse, that accepting anything from him was dangerous, but she was too exhausted to argue. She nodded, grabbed her bag, and held her father's watch to her chest, as if it were a talisman. The drive to the Bronx was silent, in the back of a luxury car driven by a discreet chauffeur. Ethan was beside her, respecting her space. But Maya could feel his presence like a magnetic field. When they arrived at the simple building where she lived, he got out of the car and opened the door for her. Maya. He held her hand before she could pull away. I know I have no right to ask for anything, but give me a chance to try and fix this. I don't know how, but I want to try. She looked at him, at those dark eyes filled with sincerity and pain, and felt something inside her surrender just a little. I'm not promising anything, but we can talk. Ethan smiled, a small, sad smile that transformed his entire face, making him look younger, more vulnerable. That's more than I deserve. Maya went up to the apartment in a state of shock, found her mother asleep on the sofa with the television on. She covered her with a blanket, went to her room, lay down still dressed, and hugged her father's watch to her chest, crying silently until sleep finally came. In the days that followed, Maya tried to return to her normal routine, but everything had changed. Ethan began to appear in her life in unexpected and unsettling ways. On the second day, a thick envelope arrived by mail with enough money to cover 3 months of her mother's treatment. On the third day, the veterinary clinic where she worked received a generous buyout offer from an anonymous investor on the condition that Maya be promoted to manager with a tripled salary. On the fourth day, he simply showed up outside her university, leaning against a discreet car, waiting for her. You're stalking me, Maya accused, but without real anger in her voice. I'm trying to help, Ethan replied, and maybe trying to see you too. I don't need your charity, and I definitely don't need you trying to buy my forgiveness. I know you don't, but your mother does, and accepting help isn't weakness, Maya, it's intelligence. They started meeting regularly. Long conversations in quiet coffee shops, walks through Central Park, simple dinners in restaurants where no one knew them. Ethan talked about his life, about the constant pressure to keep up appearances, about the meetings with men he despised but couldn't yet confront. Maya talked about her daily struggle, about the fear of losing her mother, about her dream of graduating and defending people who had no voice. And with every meeting, the attraction between them grew. It started with accidental touches, hands brushing as they walked, glances that lasted a few seconds too long. It evolved into long hugs, Ethan holding Maya when she cried talking about her father, Maya comforting Ethan when he admitted how much he hated the life he led. The sexual tension was palpable, a taut wire about to snap, but they both resisted, knowing that crossing that line would make everything infinitely more complicated. It was on a night of torrential rain, 2 months after that first explosive evening, that the barrier finally broke. Maya had just left a difficult exam at school, soaked to the bone, waiting for the bus, when Ethan's car pulled up beside her. She got in without arguing, kicking off her soaked shoes, trying to wring the water from her clothes. "You're going to get sick like this," Ethan said, turning the heater on full blast. "Come to my place. Take a hot shower, put on some dry clothes. I'll take you home after." Maya should have said no. She knew exactly where this could lead. But she was tired of resisting, tired of fighting something that felt more inevitable with each passing day. Okay. The penthouse was empty when they arrived. Mrs. Carmela was away visiting relatives in Italy. Ethan showed Maya to the bathroom, left out clean clothes for her, and discreetly left. She took a long shower, letting the hot water wash the tension from her shoulders, and put on the oversized shirt and sweatpants he'd left for her, which smelled of him in a disturbingly comforting way. When she came out, she found Ethan in the kitchen making tea, still in his wet clothes, his hair dripping. She laughed at the incongruity of the scene, a man used to being served preparing tea in a professional chef's kitchen. "You should change too," she said. "I will." He poured the tea into 2 mugs. "But I thought you'd want something warm first." They sat on the huge sofa in the living room, the city below gleaming through the rain-washed windows. The storm outside seemed to mirror the storm inside both of them. Years of accumulated tension, repressed desire, guilt and attraction, forming an impossible knot. "Ethan," Maya began, her voice trembling, "we need to stop this, whatever this is. It's not going to work. It can't work. I know." He didn't take his eyes off her. "I tell myself that every single day, and every single day I miserably fail to stay away from you. I'm the daughter of the man you couldn't save. You're the son of the man my father wanted to arrest. This is impossible, wrong, doomed to fail," Ethan completed. "And yet, when I'm with you, I feel like for the first time in years, there's hope that I can be someone better than who I am." Maya put her mug down on the table, her hands shaking. "I can't save you, Ethan. I can barely save myself. I don't want you to save me." He moved closer, their faces inches apart. "I just want this. Whatever this is. Even if it's wrong. Even if it's impossible." The kiss, when it finally happened, was like a dam breaking. Years of Maya's loneliness, years of Ethan's guilt, all merged into a moment of pure need. She clung to him as if she were drowning, and he was her only anchor. He held her as if she were infinitely precious and fragile at the same time. They made love right there on the sofa, desperate and tender, anger and sweetness mixing until there was no distinction. Maya cried and Ethan kissed away every tear, murmuring apologies and promises against her skin. When they finally separated, breathless and transformed, there was no going back. "This is going to destroy us," Maya whispered, lying on his chest, listening to the rapid beat of his heart. "Probably." Ethan kissed the top of her head. "But maybe it's worth being destroyed for something real instead of continuing to survive on lies." In the weeks that followed, they tried to keep their relationship a secret. But in a city like New York, secrets don't last long. Ethan's family found out first, and the reaction was one of restrained fury and veiled threats. Uncles, cousins, business associates, they all saw Maya as a threat, an outsider who could destroy everything they had built. There was pressure for Ethan to push her away, to get back on the designated path, marry someone from the same social class, and forget this madness. Ethan refused all the pressure, and for the first time in his adult life, he set clear boundaries with his family. Maya was non-negotiable. If they wanted to continue having any kind of relationship with him, they would have to accept it. On Maya's side, the reaction was equally complicated. Longtime friends questioned her judgment, classmates made jokes about her selling out. Neighbors in her building looked on with poorly disguised disapproval. The only person who supported her unconditionally was, surprisingly, her mother. Celia, weakened by the treatment but still sharp, called her daughter for a serious talk. "This young man, Ethan, does he make you happy?" "Yes," Maya admitted, in a complicated, confusing way, "but yes." "And does he respect you? Does he treat you well?" "He treats me like I'm the most important person in the world." Celia held her daughter's hand with a surprising strength for someone so frail. "Then the rest doesn't matter. Your father, God rest his soul, always said that life was too short to waste on the judgment of others. If you found someone who values you, who makes you want to be better, grab onto it with both hands and don't let go." It was this unexpected support that gave Maya the courage to face the next challenge. Ethan had decided it was time to truly start dismantling the organization from within, and he needed her help. He had access to documents, records, proof of crimes that could put dozens of powerful people in jail, but he needed someone with legal knowledge to organize it all in a way that would be admissible in court. "You're asking me to betray my family," he said. When he finally laid out the full plan for Maya, months of information spread across the penthouse dining table, and possibly putting myself at risk of death. "I wouldn't expect you to agree." Maya looked at the documents, at the proof of systematic corruption. Industrial-scale money laundering, politicians, judges, cops, all involved. It was exactly the kind of case her father had dedicated his life to building. It was the chance to finally get the justice he never could. "How much time do we have?" she asked. "Depends on how careful we are. Months, maybe a year if we're lucky. Then let's get started." The work was meticulous and exhausting. Maya spent nights awake studying documents, finding connections, building the case brick by brick. Ethan provided information from the inside, recordings of meetings, bank transfers, anything that could serve as evidence. They worked in the penthouse late into the night, eating cold takeout, drinking too much coffee, knowing that every day that passed increased the risk of being discovered. And inevitably, they were discovered. Not by Ethan's family, but by his enemies. A rival organization, which had been trying to topple the Sterlings for years, found out that Ethan was gathering evidence and assumed he planned to use it to consolidate power and eliminate competition. They decided to strike first. The kidnapping attempt happened on a Thursday afternoon as Maya was leaving the university. Two men approached her in the parking lot, tried to force her into a van. She fought, screamed, used everything she had learned in the self-defense classes Ethan had insisted she take. She managed to escape through sheer luck and determination, ran back onto campus, called security, called Ethan. He arrived in 15 minutes, pale as a ghost, trembling with a fear Maya had never seen in him. He held her as if she would disappear if he let go, checked every scratch, every bruise, murmuring apologies non-stop. "It's over," he said, when he could finally speak coherently. "I'm stopping everything. It's not worth putting you at risk." "No." Maya held his face, forced him to look at her. "Not now. We're too close. We just need to be more careful." But being careful wasn't enough when so much was at stake. The attacks continued, becoming more brazen. Slashed tires, threatening phone calls, anonymous messages with photos of Maya, her mother, places they frequented. Ethan hired private security, tried to create a protective bubble around her, but they both knew it was only a matter of time before something worse happened. It was Celia, surprisingly, who provided the solution. She had improved significantly with the treatment Ethan insisted on paying for, and one night she called them both for a talk. "You need to go to the police, not the corrupt police who killed my husband, but someone you can trust. There has to be someone clean in this city." Ethan and Maya exchanged glances. There was someone. A federal prosecutor who had earned a reputation for being incorruptible, who had come from outside New York, specifically to investigate systemic corruption. No one fully trusted him because he was too new in town, with no ties to any faction. This made him dangerous to all sides, but also potentially the only person who could help them. Contact was made through discreet channels. A meeting arranged on neutral ground, a busy cafe downtown. The prosecutor, a man in his 40s named Richard Miles, listened to the whole story with an unreadable expression, examined samples of the documents Ethan brought, and asked pointed, penetrating questions. "If I take this on, you both go into witness protection until the trial," he said finally. "Every person mentioned in these documents will want you dead, and I'm not exaggerating. We know," Maya replied, holding Ethan's hand under the table, "and your family." Richard looked at Ethan. "Your mother, your uncles, they could all end up being indicted. Are you prepared for that?" Ethan closed his eyes, took a deep breath. "My mother is innocent. She never knew anything. I need assurances that she won't be prosecuted. I can work on that, but I can't make promises. It depends on what we find." Richard gathered the documents. "Give me 24 hours to verify the authenticity of this. If it's everything you say it is, we move fast. Simultaneous arrests, seizure of documents, the whole package. But it has to be fast and coordinated. or they'll destroy evidence and disappear. The 24 hours that followed were the longest of Maya's and Ethan's lives. They locked themselves in the penthouse, with security doubled, and waited. Ethan called his mother, who was still in Italy, and had a long, painful conversation where he tried to prepare her for what was coming without revealing details. Maya hugged her own mother, who understood without being told that something big was about to happen. When Richard called back, his voice was charged with adrenaline. "It's real, all of it. This is bigger than I imagined. We've got federal judges in here, state and federal politicians, businessmen who are on the Forbes list. If we do this right, we change the country." "When?" Ethan asked. "Tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock. Simultaneous raids in 12 cities. They'll pick you up at 5 to take you to a secure location. Pack only the essentials." The night before the operation, Maya and Ethan lay in each other's arms, sleepless, just absorbing each other's presence, knowing that after sunrise, nothing would be the same. They talked about the future, about what it would be like to start over with new identities in some small town, maybe upstate, far from everyone and everything. They talked about simple dreams, a house with a garden, maybe some dogs, a normal life where the biggest problem was deciding what to cook for dinner. "Do you regret it?" Maya asked in the darkness before dawn. "Meeting you?" "Never. Everything that led me to you, every day." Ethan kissed her forehead. "But if I had to do it all over again, knowing it would end here, with you in my arms, I would make every single choice exactly the same." The operation the next morning was surgical and devastating. While Maya and Ethan were being escorted to a secure apartment in an undisclosed location, federal teams were knocking down doors in New York, Miami, D.C., and Chicago. Dozens of arrests, millions in frozen assets, enough seized documents to keep prosecutors busy for years. The media fallout was explosive. The case dominated headlines. Political analysts speculated about the consequences. Well-known names appeared in handcuffs on the news. And at the center of it all was the story of a criminal heir who decided to destroy his own empire, and the daughter of a murdered cop who helped him seek justice. Mrs. Carmela, who returned from Italy straight into a federal interrogation, had her world turned upside down. When she was finally able to see Ethan months later in a monitored visiting room, she cried in a way Maya had never seen anyone cry, all her faith in the husband she loved destroyed by the brutal truth. But she also hugged her son tightly, told him she loved him regardless of everything, that she understood why he did what he did. The months in protection were surreal. Maya and Ethan lived in a small apartment in a town in upstate New York, under 24-hour surveillance, allowed only limited contact with their families. Maya studied for the bar exam, determined to finish what she started. Ethan, for the first time in his life, had time to think, to read, to discover who he was when he wasn't playing a role. They fought sometimes, the stress of the situation wearing on both of their patients. Maya exploded once, screaming that she had thrown her whole life away for him, that she could never go home, could never be a lawyer under her own name. Ethan retorted that he had destroyed his family, turned his mother into a victim, and sacrificed everything for a chance at redemption that might never come. But after the fights came the reconciliations, honest conversations about fears and regrets, about hopes and dreams. They learned to be just Ethan and Maya, without the weight of their last names, without the chains of their pasts. They learned that real love was also real work, a daily choice to keep choosing each other even when it was hard. The trial, when it finally happened 2 years later, was a media circus. Maya and Ethan testified on different days, protected by elaborate security measures. The questions were brutal, defense attorneys trying to discredit them, painting them as vengeful lovers, opportunistic liars. But the documents spoke for themselves. The evidence was irrefutable. Convictions came in a cascade. Politicians, businessmen, cops, all falling like dominoes. Captain Fisher himself, who Ethan revealed was not actually dead, but hiding in a protection scheme paid for by the organization, was arrested trying to flee the country. In his interrogation, he confessed details about John Smith's death that confirmed everything Ethan had said. It was after the trial, when the dust began to settle, that Maya and Ethan could finally think about a real future. They had been allowed to leave witness protection, albeit with recommendations to keep a low profile. They decided to stay upstate, far from the hustle of New York City, and build something new. Ethan used the little money he had managed to save before the asset freeze to buy a small inn in a historic town. Maya passed the bar exam using her civil name and started working at a legal aid office, defending people who had no resources, finally living the dream she had when she entered law school. Mrs. Carmela moved near them, into a simple but comfortable house where she planted a garden her late husband had never allowed her to have. She and Celia, who also moved when her health definitively improved, became unlikely friends. Two matriarchs who had lost so much but found solace in each other's company. It was on a spring morning, 3 years after that explosive night in the penthouse, that Ethan woke Maya up early and took her for a walk to a lookout point that overlooked the valley. The sun was rising, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, and when he knelt, holding a simple box with a modest ring, Maya started crying before he even said a word. "I don't have much to offer," Ethan began, his voice thick with emotion. "I have no money, no power, nothing of what used to define who I was. But I have you, and I have the chance to be a better man every day. Maya Smith, will you build this future with me? Will you marry a man you saved from himself?" Yes. Maya didn't even have to think. 1,000 times yes. The wedding was small, just close family, and a few true friends who had remained through it all. It took place in the town's historic church, a simple but beautiful colonial building. And when Maya walked in, wearing a simple lace dress, with her father's watch on her wrist as her only jewelry, Ethan saw the most beautiful woman who had ever existed. The vows were simple and honest. Promises to keep choosing each other, to build together, to honor not just the love, but also the work that love requires. Celia cried throughout the ceremony, happy to see her daughter finally find peace. Mrs. Carmela held her hand, united in their love for these two young people who had gone through so much to get there. The life they built afterward was extraordinarily ordinary. Ethan turned the inn into a modest success, knowing every guest, taking care of every detail with an attention he once reserved for dirty deals. Maya built a reputation as a fierce but fair lawyer, winning impossible cases through sheer determination. They adopted 2 rescue dogs, planted a garden that never looked as good as it should have, and learned to cook together by watching YouTube videos. There were hard moments, memories of the past that came back in nightmares, days when the weight of everything that happened felt crushing. But there were also moments of pure, simple joy, lazy mornings in bed, laughing over silly things. The discovery that happiness isn't in grand gestures, but in the accumulation of small moments. When Maya found out she was pregnant, 2 years after the wedding, she was scared. Scared of bringing a child into such a complicated world, scared of not being good enough, scared that the past would somehow taint this new beginning. But Ethan held her face in his hands, looked into her eyes with that intensity that had disarmed her from the first moment, and said, "We will raise this child with love, with truth, and with the courage to admit our mistakes. It will be perfect because it will be ours." And it was. The baby girl was born on an autumn afternoon, small and perfect, with dark eyes like her father and a fierce determination like her mother. Apparent from her very first cry, They named her Hope because that was exactly what she represented. The promise that even from the darkest ashes, something beautiful and new can grow. Celia held her granddaughter in her arms, tears streaming down her face, and whispered, "Your grandfather would be so proud of you, Maya, of everything you've become, of everything you've overcome." And Maya looked around, at the husband she loved, at the mother who survived, at the mother-in-law who became true family, at the daughter who represented a future free from the chains of the past. And she realized that finally, after years of struggle, she had found what she was always searching for. Not justice in the legal sense, although that came too, but justice in the deepest sense, the feeling that the universe, for all its cruelty, still had room for redemption, for love, for second chances. Ethan wore John Smith's watch every day, no longer as a penance, but as a reminder of a good man who died fighting for what was right, a reminder of the price of corruption, a reminder that every choice matters. And when Hope was old enough to ask about the watch, about the crack on the crystal, he told her the full story, hiding nothing, not softening the hard parts, because that was the promise they had made, to themselves and to their daughter, to never lie about the past, to never pretend they were perfect, but also to never let the past define the future. They were more than the mistakes they had made, more than the circumstances that had shaped them, more than the pain they had carried. They were Maya and Ethan, two imperfect people who found in each other the strength to become better, who transformed tragedy into triumph, guilt into redemption, and hate into love. And in that transformation, in that impossible journey, from enemies to lovers to family, they proved that even the most unlikely stories can have happy endings, as long as there is enough courage to fight for them, to choose them every day, to believe that love, true and hard-won, can truly conquer all. And every night when they put Hope to bed, when they lay side by side, looking out the window at the stars over the small town that had become their home, they held hands and gave a silent thanks for that stormy night years ago, when a watch with a cracked crystal blew up their lives and rebuilt them into something infinitely truer, stronger and more real than either of them could have ever imagined. The past couldn't be changed, but the future was theirs to write, page by page, choice by choice, love by love. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel. I promise to bring you videos every day that will make your life happier. Comment what you thought of my story with a rating from 0 to 10, and thank you very much.